Good morning, everyone. I'm Frank.
And I'm Tien, and we lead Android games engineering and Play product management at Google. First, welcome to GDC. We know you have your choice of 10 a.m. sessions. There are only about 1,000 others right now, so we appreciate you being here with us today. So, like many of you, we have spent our careers and most of our lives playing and building games. Pop quiz, does anyone here remember Strike Commander or Wing Commander 3 or Wing Commander in general? OK, a few. That was Frank.
Yeah, thank you.
To show you just how hardcore he was, this was his license plate. Wait, you were in like high school then?
Well, it wasn't high school, unfortunately. I was quite a bit older. But yeah, this was in Chicago. Before I'd even started in the games business, I may have been a little bit too large of a Wing Commander fan. So,
no issue with that. For my part, I helped build the Nintendo GameCube, the Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 4. And to prove my nerd cred, here's an old picture kind of showing my bad hair choices late at night as we brought up the high-performance skinning and animation code for the GameCube. That was generally used in all GameCube games and Wii games for quite some time.
I spent 17 years working on Xbox. I worked on all 3 of the Xboxes. What I consider to be my crowning achievement for that was I was the development manager for XNA Game Studio. So if any of you remember XNA and the XNA framework and all that stuff that Unity is based on today, you can blame me for that too. I joined Google because I see the potential here of Google's reach and really the expansive capabilities that Google has that can really take your game businesses to the next level.
Now, Frank and I also care deeply about diversity in the games business. And we mean that in every sense of the word. We live in a world where large, story-driven AAA games like God of War can live side by side with a mobile indie premium title like Florence on Game of the Year lists. That's absolutely outstanding. And so we just care a lot about fostering both ends of that spectrum. Everything from large AAA to small indie, and all the business models in between, from premium, subscription, ads, and so on.
Your businesses are helping to fuel incredible growth in the global mobile games market, which are forecasted by Newzoo to grow yearly by double digits for the next decade. By 2021, mobile games revenue will be 60% of the global games revenue.
And we're seeing some really interesting trends in the industry, like the explosion of gaming in India, which is not traditionally a huge gaming market. And this is in part due to the amazing success of PUBG Mobile. This game has become a cultural phenomenon there. The Indian Prime Minister has made references to it, and couples have made the news by putting out PUBG-themed engagement photos. But success is not only for the large developers. Every year, we see inspiring stories, like Small Giant Games, who launched Empires and Puzzles way back in March 2017. It became a top-grossing title on Play last year, and they just very recently got acquired by Zynga. They started out as this tiny team, so huge congratulations to them. However, as people that have been around games for quite some time, we know that Google hasn't quite always lived up to its potential.
We know we can improve the experience for game developers, and we want to share some of the things we're working on to make it better for you. You'll hear from various Google teams throughout this week, but for now, we'd like to focus on Android and Play and the things that we're doing there to improve the ecosystem. As the engineering lead for Android games and graphics, my team's primary goal is to help you reach more of the 2 billion Android devices that are there by making it easier for you to build for them. We hear your feedback today that it's too hard, especially when building high-fidelity games. My team's focus is to build tools that will help all developers bring mobile games to the next level, pushing the boundaries on graphics, multiplayer experiences, and so much more. Android has traditionally been one of the toughest platforms to develop for, as though that's like a badge of goodness. given the fragmentation of the ecosystem and limited availability of game development tools to deal with this complexity. When you think about all of the SoC vendors that are out there and all of the different OEMs using those SoCs, it's very, very difficult to know what to target to hit the kinds of things that you're going to be after in terms of what your game needs to do in terms of performance or look and feel. At the same time, mobile games are becoming much more complex. With more titles moving from console and PC to mobile, as developers, you know these games need advanced debugging and development tools, and those are the kinds of problems that my team is going to be focused on solving. To do so, we're making big investments to improve the development experience on Android. We're expanding our scope and ramping up teams to unblock game developers in problematic areas, and also working with the platform teams to build solutions at scale. There are a lot of hard problems to solve, and if you're up for a challenge, we are hiring.
Hey, you know I used to optimize games for the GameCube, right?
No, I didn't know that. How long has it been since you coded?
7 or 8 years, maybe.
Ooh, well, maybe you should keep your day job then. Just saying. We're also investing in tools to help give you better insights into what's going on. We know that the CPU and GPU profiling stories on Android today are not up to what they need to be. We need, again, better debugging workflows. And we're investing in wider Vulkan availability as well so that you can tap the graphics potential that's in a lot of these mobile GPUs today. We've also heard from developers that it's hard to find information and resources on mobile game development and distribution. So to help today, we've launched a new site as a central location to make great games and maximize your reach. Keep an eye on this as we're going to continue to add new resources over time. These are just a few places we're working on to make things less complex for you to build games on Android. And we look forward to sharing more with you throughout the year. In fact, we'll have much more to say at Google I/O in a brand new track dedicated entirely to games. This is the first time ever that games have been featured at I/O, and this speaks to the commitment across Google because we really want to be the full lifecycle partner for you as you're building these titles. If you can't make the event, please make sure to follow along on the live stream. There'll be a lot of information. We know that developing your game doesn't mean the work stops when you publish. This is where you shift focus to improving the game's performance in the marketplace.
And that's where play comes in. So over the past year, I've spent a lot of time speaking with the game developer community around the world, and a couple of things really stand out that we want to focus on. First, discovery. It's hard, and we want to help your game succeed on the Play Store. Every day, more games are appearing, but we only have the same number of pixels, and we want to make it easier for everyone to get discovered. Now, we know that it's especially hard for newer and smaller game developers, and we want to do a lot more to support you. So if you visit our booth starting on Wednesday in Center Hall, you can learn about some of the programs that we run specifically for indies that help amplify your great work, such as the Indie Games Showcase. So to learn more, please go to this site. So while we're improving the storefront, we continue to offer new and effective ways to help you distribute your games to users. Last year at GDC, we announced the launch of Pre-Reg, which allows you to start marketing and building up the pre-launch hype and demand for your upcoming release. This is a tried and true best practice across the games industry, and it helps build that hype with players. You're going to hear some big news later today about Pre-Reg and some great new features. So stay tuned for our session called Building the Hype. There's a lot more that we're thinking about when it comes to games discovery. Your games have so much creativity and so much innovation, and then we tell you to condense it into one icon on the homepage of the store. So we want to do more to show the soul of your game to users before they even click through to the store listing page. So what you see here on the left is one of our new auto-playing treatments. It should be going out into experiment this week. And in general, you should be expecting to see more and more of your videos and screenshots show up on the home page over the coming quarters. On the right, you will see our LiveOps events page. And this can help drive re-engagement and discovery for your LiveOps events and games. Major updates can also be shown here. And so in general, we just want to be there to help amplify those big beats in your business. We also launched Google Play Instant for games at GDC last year. Players can hit the Try Now button on your store listing page and go straight to a demo experience of your game within a matter of seconds with no installation required.
You know, I remember when we had to cut discs for demos, and we used to glue them to the fronts of magazines. Does anyone remember gluing, you know, the going get the disc off the front of the magazine and then rushing home and having fun? Did anyone miss that? No? Okay. Well, this is the best part, is that now you can download and play a match of something like Garena's Free Fire in about 10 seconds, which is a very, very different world to be living in.
Great times we live in. We also enabled Instant for premium titles, like Hyperbeard's Dr. Meep, an incredibly cute take on the match 3 genre. We also want to help you make money. We want developers to have more options on how they monetize in general. In-app purchases, of course, are super important, but we want to support other methods, like subscriptions, premium games, or rewarded ads. And we're constantly trying out new approaches here. We see huge benefits in helping developers diversify their revenue streams. And later today, you'll hear more about the success of developers like Legendary and Congregate. Stay tuned. We're investing in even more options, and we hope to give you even more choice in the future. So if it isn't already clear, Google is super serious about helping games throughout their lifecycle. And if you want to learn more, come to our booth in the West Hall or visit our new Google for Games site.
Before we kick off today, I wanted to share some other events we have lined up. Join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. for The Big Reveal. Yes. Then on Wednesday, there's a full day of sessions from Google Cloud. And finally, Wednesday through Friday, there are over 40 Google sessions and talks throughout the conference. Full agendas and live stream details can be found at g.co/GDC19. Here's a quick overview of today. We have 4 main sessions full of updates and tips to help you succeed on Android and Play. The first 3 sessions will cover tools, monetization strategies, and new opportunities. Then make sure to come back at 2:40 for a more technical session focused on building games on Android. We appreciate everyone being here today. Thank you for choosing Android and Play to create and scale your games, and we look forward to seeing what you do next. With that, we'll hand over to Ben Frankel, who will share more about distribution and discovery. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, hello, everybody. I'm Ben Frankel. I'm a product manager on Play. And today I'm going to go a little deeper into some of the things Tian talked about earlier about how we're improving discovery on the store. And joining me later on, in a little bit, is my esteemed colleague, Kobe Glick, who will be talking about distribution on Play. But before I get rolling, I wanted to kick things off with some audience participation, get you guys energized, all right? And so, just to provide some context for this, about a month or so ago, I was looking at the latest results of the GDC State of the Game Industry Survey, and among other things, it asked this question. Which discovery methods you, the game developer, find most effective? And the top 5 responses, in no particular order, were word of mouth, promotion on the digital storefronts, that would be the Play Store, for example, social media, very popular, YouTube video, which apparently is its own category, and traditional press and bloggers. So take a second to let this soak in, all right? Look at them closely. Keep them in your mind because they're going to be coming in handy in a second. So now what I want you to do is to take a moment and guess which discovery method most developers selected and which you believe the fewest. So take a guess. What's the yellow bar and what's the blue bar? All right, I'll give you a second to think about it. All right, which is number 1 and which is the last place one? Okay, all right, so survey says that, you can imagine a drum roll, the number 1 choice is social media. All right, very exciting, I know. And last place, Last place. Survey says it was promotion on the digital storefronts. And for completeness, this is how everything else shook out. So raise your hand if you successfully guessed that social media would be ranked first. Who thought social media would be ranked first? I think there's more of you who really thought that. But now raise your hand if you successfully guessed that the storefront would be ranked last. Not that many of you, like me. I was a bit surprised too. Now raise your hand if you just thought this whole thing was contrived to make the Play Store look good. All right, so there's at least some cynics in the audience, and I appreciate that. So when I saw these results, I wondered, how is this possible with the billions of people that are visiting the store and the fact that all discovery roads end in one app store and the other? Where is this disconnect coming from? Do developers believe that most users have made up their mind before they come to the store? I was wondering the same thing. Well, I did some digging, and in fact, a majority of store sessions are discovery-focused, with people searching for things like free games or scrolling through the home page. So my takeaway was that we, as Play, have a tremendous opportunity to improve the effectiveness of game discovery, and here is how we think about that opportunity. So for years, game discovery started with the tried and trusted game icon. Lots of icons, all of the game icons. And we know that you put a lot of effort into carefully crafting these things. But there are physical limits to how much information these could possibly convey to users. The game icon is really just a narrow keyhole view into the store listing. And the store listing has a lot more information. There are videos, there are screenshots, but the store listing is still just another slightly less narrow keyhole view into the layer below, the actual game. And each layer, sure, provides more information than the last, but playing the game is really the first time the user can tell if they found a match for what they're looking for. So we asked ourselves, how can we elevate what's inside the game, the soul or essence of the game, to the front line of discovery? How do we move things from this bottom layer up to the top, further and further up? And over the last few years, we've in fact been making progress towards this goal. Some of this Tian covered earlier, moving content like trailers and screenshots from the store listing to the top layer. We've recently expanded to auto-playing elements like this, which Tian mentioned earlier. And there's also a ton of activity inside of games in that bottom layer, the stuff that's happening inside the game, daily events, competitions, and promotions. And that's where live events come in and why we have the Events tab. And we believe the next step in the store's evolution is to bring more of the essence or soul of the game up to that top layer. And Google Play Instant plays an important role in this area. So this next section is going to provide an update on how the product has matured since we talked about it and announced it at GDC last year. So as a quick refresher, Google Play Instant enables users to start games instantly with a single tap, to try the game without installing or uninstalling, and it gives you the ability to launch games from anywhere, all over the store, and plays properties beyond that. And since GDC last year, developer adoption has been booming. Over the last 6 months, we've seen 3x growth in instant games, and sessions have grown even further. So we asked ourselves, with that success, can we elevate instant games further? What else can we do with this format? Could we shift instant games from being just part of the existing discovery experience to being the discovery experience? Well, the Play Games app playlists are the first real attempt to do this. Imagine in the future being able to click Play All on the new and updated section on the store and having an experience like this, where you can go from demo to demo to demo until you found something you love to play. Think about how different that experience would be when you are looking for a game. And the Play Games app in the store are going to continue to invest and iterate and experiment with concepts like this. And our success has also emboldened us to elevate instant games from the store listing to the higher up of the higher layers here on the home page, like in this ads example, one of the new Try Now treatments that we're testing out. So expect to see more Try Now buttons on the home page in the near future. And all these new experiences were really made possible because of the incredible support of our partners who build instant games. So the question is, why were they building them? What's behind this growth? So there are three driving forces. The first, Google Play Instant is delivering business impact to you, the game developer. Second, we've made it easier and faster for you to build instant games. And lastly, we've cultivated an ecosystem of implementation and technology partners that can help you build instant games. So diving into business uplift, the key thing I want you to take away is that Google Play Instant can work for any game, any of your games. And here's a sample of recent successful games to help illustrate a few key points. So number one, they've all achieved improvements for the developer in terms of number of users that install the game. That's a big, important thing to emphasize, from 6% to 26%. But in addition to that, it's also important to emphasize that success can be found in any category of game. So whether or not you're building a strategy game, an arcade game, or a casual game, you can find success. And second, irrespective of how you monetize your game, Google Play Instant can work for you. And that impact can be particularly pronounced for premium games, as this example illustrates. And lastly, you can find success regardless of how you have built your instant game. So whether you prefer to use HTML like Flip the Gun, Unity, or Unity like Rodeo Stampede, or a custom engine, or app on board, you can be successful. And speaking of developer tools, we've made major strides in this area. So in the lead up to GDC, our early access partners were taking months to build an instant game. And with our investment in Unity and Cocos, we got it down to weeks, then we got it down to days. But going forward, we aspire to do two things. Enable developers to build instant games in a matter of hours, to cut that down even more, and enable every single one of you in the audience to build an instant game. And for those of you who may be skeptical, we have a video demonstration that shows that this is possible, courtesy of App on Board. The demo is of their new studio product that was announced last week that takes a codeless approach to building instant games. And just a warning, the demo runs at 18 times normal speed, so I will be talking quickly. All right, so you create a project, and after you've created the video and audio assets, you can actually import them into Studio, where you can drag and drop them to build out your user experience. You can set up your transitions and link them to gestures like clicking and swiping. You can quickly preview experience and iterate through that process. And as you can see in this time lapse here, in under 10 minutes, you could have your first iteration of an instant game. And this approach to build instant games could unlock a whole new range of use cases. Imagine in the future having different instant games for every user segment, for every content update, for every live or event or promotion. That's the future we're building towards. And another important signal of instance maturation is the implementation partner ecosystem that's growing up around the product. And they help solve critical problems in adoption for us, and they have been critical to our success as a result. So to learn more about these partners and everything else I talked about today, check out our GDC Medium post here, and come to our session at the Google booth this Wednesday to learn how to build instant games with Unity. And with that, I'll hand things over to Kobe to talk about the power of play distribution.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. Ben showed you how Play's content-first approach and instant games help you with discovery. I want to tell you about how Play helps you with distribution. I'll cover three things, and if there's one word I want you to take away from this talk, it's dynamic. I'll talk about Android app bundles and Google Play dynamic delivery. I'll talk about preparing for 64-bit and how you can keep your users on the latest version of your game. So let's start with the bundle. We launched the Android app bundle at Google I/O last year, and more than 60,000 apps and games have already switched to publishing Android app bundles in production on Google Play. You can build them with Android Studio, you can build with Unity, and recently also with Cocos Creator. And apps and games using the app bundle become smaller because Play's dynamic delivery only sends the device what it needs. Our data shows that as a result, games switching to the bundle see more than 3% increase in their install success rate. Large games benefit even more, with more than 4% install uplift. Gamelofts, Minion Rush, Despicable Me, switch to the app bundle, reduce the size of the game by 20%, which is obviously great for users, and as a result, saw more than 3% increase in their install success rate. And there are other benefits too. It's not just more installs. We see that games switching to bundle get more updates, which makes sense since the update patches are smaller too. In addition, we've learned that the size of the game is a major factor in the uninstall decision. We're looking into this area and we plan to share more numbers later this year. But generally speaking, the larger your game is, the more likely it'll be uninstalled by users with limited storage. A few months ago, we shared with you that by August, we want you to provide 64-bit versions of your games. This provides tremendous performance improvements and sets you to a world with 64-bit only hardware. Some concern we've heard over the years is that adding 64-bit support makes your game bigger because you need to ship both the 64-bit and the 32-bit libraries to the device. With the Android App Bundle, this is no longer the case. Google Play's dynamic delivery will only ship the required libraries based on the device architecture. And the great thing here, you don't need to do multi-APK to achieve that. You can do this with a single publishing artifact. To learn more about preparing to 64-bit, please join this session. We're co-hosting on Wednesday with ARM. All the details right here. And please also read our blog post for more information. You all build great games, and you keep improving them with time. And for your users to take advantage of your latest and greatest features, they need to be on the latest version of your game. And you're probably familiar with Play's auto updates, which reach tons of users. But given Play's enormous scale, there are always users who will not be on the latest version of your game. So recently, we expanded our dynamic framework and introduced an early access program for in-app updates. With this API, you can update your users to the latest version of your game without actually sending them to the Play Store. You can see here an example of how the Chrome app is using this API. And I want to show you two flows that we support. The first flow is the immediate update flow. This is for cases when the user must be on the latest version of their game to start playing. Today, some multiplayer games already do this kind of blocking flow, where they send users to the Play Store to get the update and ask them to come back afterwards. The great thing about this new API is that it allows you to do this all in line. You can keep the user in your game while they download and install the update. The second flow is the flexible update flow. This is for cases where you want to upsell the latest features of your game to your users. You can have the user download the update in the background while they keep playing your game. We are ready to expand the early access program to more developers. So if you're interested, please register with this URL right here. And we're also planning to launch this to all developers publicly soon. Now I want to tell you a little bit about our future plans in the distribution space. Mobile devices keep getting better every year. More computation power, more memory and storage, better graphics. As you know better than anyone else, this creates huge opportunities to deliver exciting mobile gaming experiences. We realize that to do that, some games will need to be large because they have high-fidelity graphics or have a lot of content. We also recognize that some of the tools that Play has provided for large games over the years, like OBBs, were not always the most optimal ones. So the good news is we're investing in this space in 2019. Before I tell you about our future plans, I want to make sure you're all aware of how things actually work now, because we made some changes in this space lately. And this is about how Play validates the size of your game in the Play console. Historically, we've only looked at the upload size of your APK. This doesn't make much sense in a world of app bundles and Play dynamic delivery anymore. So recently, we changed size validations across the board in the Play console, and we're now only looking at the compressed download size of your APK or app bundle. I started this talk by telling you about the immediate benefits of switching to the app bundle, like more installs and more updates. I want to make sure you're aware that bundles are also the future format for games on Google Play. Later this year, we plan to provide you new tools to help you move away from OBBs. This will be based on bundles. We're going to provide you new tools to deliver and optimize the delivery of game assets. This will be also based on app bundles. So switching to the bundle not only provides immediate benefits, it sets you up to benefit from our future investment in this area. But while it's really exciting to talk about the future, we all live in the present. So I want to mention a couple of things that are happening right now. You're probably all familiar with the large download warning we show to users in the Play Store. And over the years, we've heard some developer feedback about how this large warning negatively impacts the conversion rate for large games on Play. So we're making a couple of changes here. First of all, we are going to be more transparent with users and tell them the exact download size. As a result, we will no longer trigger this warning when the user is on Wi-Fi connection. And in addition, we will make the option to proceed with the download more explicit. And one more thing. We will no longer trigger this warning at 100 megabytes. Starting today, we're triggering this warning at 150 megabytes. The size limit of the Android app bundle will be increased to 150 megabytes to make sure you could take advantage of this. We are currently keeping the size limit for APKs on 100, but you can still use APK and OBB until we completely revise this space later this year. So today I talked to you about our dynamic framework. I spoke about the immediate benefits of switching to app bundles, like more installs and more updates. I showed you how it better sets you for a 64-bit, and about our latest API, allowing you to keep your users on the latest version of your game. Finally, I told you about some of our plans to better support large games on Google Play, and about some changes that are happening today, like the new 150 megabyte limit threshold. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you for joining. Now I'd like to call Fergus to talk about Android Vitals.
Hey everyone, I'm Fergus Hurley, Product Manager at Google. Android Vitals is a program by Google to help improve the quality of games and apps on the Android ecosystem. And we've been running this program for about 2 years now, and I'm going to give you an overview of the program, and then we're going to have Felipe from Taps Games come to stage and talk you through how they're using Android Vitals and a bunch of other tools to help improve the performance of the many games that they are building. So to start off, hands up who wants more 5-star ratings and less 1-star ratings. Okay, if you don't have your hand up, you might be working for a competitor, so you might want to change job. But when we look at the data for reviews on Google Play, what we find is that the vast majority of people talking about negative things in 1-star reviews are talking about bugs, instability, and other performance issues that are causing problems on their device. And so 42% are just talking about stability and bugs alone. When we look at the 5-star reviews on the Play Store, we see that 70+% of the time, people are talking about speed, design, and usability, positive performance signals. So what is the Android Vitals tool in the Play console? It is a place where you can go and see 15 performance metrics about your applications. These are broken out into 5 performance areas: battery, stability, rendering, startup time, and permission denials. For each of these metrics, we provide you detailed reporting with breakdowns by APK, OS version, and device. These help you be able to understand where should you invest your time in improving the technical performance of your application. And these metrics are powered by real users out there, the hundreds of millions of Android users who've opted into sharing their data with Google and you, our game partners. And these metrics are becoming more and more important to the business success of your application because we can see that these impact retention, engagement, and monetization of games and apps. There's a lot of information in Android Vitals. So to help you prioritize where you invest your time, at the top of the Android Vitals section, we provide core vitals. These are the 4 metrics that we think are most important to your users, and we have data to show that they do impact your performance. And so the 4 metrics are in the stability area, crash rate, and ANR rate. In the battery area, we have stuck wake locks and excessive wake-ups. For each of these bad behaviors, we provide, for each of these core vitals, we have a bad behavior threshold. And the bad behavior threshold enables you to be able to know if you're one of the worst performing games for that metric. For the other vitals metrics, we want you to look at them and be able to see how you're performing relative to others. And I'll talk about that in a second. Some of the vitals metrics we have right now, such as the rendering metrics, just capture UI toolkit rendered frames. And so they don't capture OpenGL. And so there are no bad behavior thresholds for the rendering metrics or the other non-core vitals. It's an area that we are working to improve in terms of having more insights for your games that are using OpenGL. One of the things that Google Play is uniquely positioned to offer is benchmarking across different games because we have the data across the platform. Right now, we offer category-level benchmarks. So for each vital metric, you can go in and select which category of the Play Store that you're in across all the games categories that we currently support and see if you're doing worse or better than the competitors in that market. And so you can see then that games that are in the racing car games area usually have a slower startup time than other games. And so this enables you to be able to understand how are you doing versus your competitors and be able to understand if you should be investing more in that area than others. This is an area that we are continually investing in, and you should expect to see a lot more advancements in this area over the next couple of months. Another major piece of feedback we got on the Android Vitals product is that people want to be alerted when there was a major change in any of the metrics. So we have anomaly alert emails and notifications in the console. These show you when there's a spike in any of your crash array and ANR clusters or in any of the core vitals. You can be able to go in and sign up for these anomaly alert emails yourself. Just go to the notification preferences section of the Play console. Sometimes we hear developers talk about how Android Vitals only applies to bigger developers, and we know that developers who are smaller indie developers are getting a lot of value out of the product. And if you're not using it already, I'd encourage you to join the over 100,000 game and app developers that are using it today. Now I'll hand over to Felipe from Taps Games to talk about how he's using Android Vitals and other tools for Taps Games.
Hi everyone, my name is Felipe Hayashida. I oversee marketing and analytics for Taps Games. And before anything else, I want to talk to you a little bit about Taps. So we're a Brazilian studio, we've been in the market since 2012. And we have a little bit over 180 people in your studio in São Paulo. We have a little bit over 30 million users, but more importantly, we've developed ourselves over 400 titles across the years. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we do with this today. So the first thing is having 400 titles is complicated. So when we're talking about this, we split our portfolio in 2 main areas. So we have legacy titles, which are the ones that we are keeping it they technically updated, but we don't really put anything else in the game, so we don't get new features. The important part, though, are the games that are live. So the games that we have game squads, so teams that we have with people from different categories, so developers and testers and QAs, etc., everyone in the same team. And of course, several of the teams are not directly related to a single title, such as marketing, for example. Each of these titles, the live ones, they go through several stages of development, right? I'm pretty sure you saw several different frameworks for this. For us, we're splitting more or less these 5 categories. So games go all the way from concepting, where we're figuring out the market, seeing what actually is happening, and seeing what game we should actually build, all the way to having the game in operation, where we're just keeping them live, keeping events and pushes and how that goes. Across several of these, though, several of these stages, a very important part is deployment, right? I know several of you have different takes on it, and we tend to use it on a very simple three-stage step that I want to talk to you about. The first one for us is pretty straightforward. So just talking about building, so getting our game in the store itself. We have a specific pipeline because the amount of games that we use to publish every month. This is highly automated. We use a GoCD pipeline where we ship things to the store, go through automated and manual testing, and get it live. The most important part, though, especially for deployment, is the rollout monitoring, which is where Vitals specifically has been very useful for us. This has, for us, takes from 7 to 10 days, where we are rolling out across our user base who is getting the new version of the game. We have both business and technical teams monitoring rollout. So while the business team is just using simple tools, either through the console itself or through our own analytics, which is largely based on Firebase, by the way, these are just checking major metrics. So are we getting major drops in MAUs? Are we getting actual spikes in reviews? And how we can actually act on that. From a technical perspective, though, this is where our developer and testing team are the most conscious about what we're doing. During this phase, we are monitoring both ANR and crash rates, which are the issues that we have the most of the time. And these are being checked constantly and proactively across the whole period. After that's done, we go into live monitoring, which is business as usual for most games. So this is not exactly deployment, but it's where we shift, from a business perspective, we shift to a much more proactive approach. So we're tracking the deeper metrics in the game that we can't really see during deployment. And from a technical perspective, we go into a more reactive state based largely on alarms. So using Crashlytics and Vitals to having alarms on all the stores and all the games that we have, because honestly, if you have 400 titles, checking all of them manually is just not feasible. I want to share with you a simple use case that I'm sure several of you have gone through across the years, which was one of our releases last year on Bid Wars, which is our current biggest title. So we were releasing a new version, several updates, several partner updates, and of course, getting a lot of technical fixes online. In this case, both our technical and business teams got a sign as soon as we were rolling out. So we got a spike on reviews. Our games usually have relatively good reviews. So getting a spike saying people couldn't access a game or the game is crashing was definitely something wrong. And lo and behold, we were also getting a spike on ANRs on the game. Investigating this was done as soon as we were reaching 20% rollout, so it didn't actually reach the whole user base. And pretty much what that was done was just, it was on Android specifically, so we were checking, we were seeing that we were getting a lot of crashes on specific third-party SDK. How do you solve that? As everyone else does. So pull it out, stop rollout, and actually remove that SDK. It was something that would take a little bit longer to test. It's very important, though, to notice that this is something very common, right? There's no secret sauce here. But I'm pretty sure all of you have seen this before. And for us, being able to catch this before it actually impacted our revenue, so it actually impacted most of our users, it's very important. And this is part of what we learned across the years. So first, the tools themselves don't have to be that complicated. So know that you don't have to necessarily overshoot. You don't need a complicated technical analysis team to make it work. You can just have tools that give you what you can react upon. Second, quality of the app, differently from what you used to do in the past and from what most people do, it's not about just the technical team. Everyone is impacted, and everyone should be paying attention to what we get on app performance. And more, in the end, quality, it's about discipline and effectiveness. So know that every single time that you're launching something, you have to be monitoring actively. And once it's live, you have to pay attention. You can't just expect it to be ready for you. So I think that's a little bit about it that I want to share with you guys. And I want to call Fergus back to talk to us.
Thanks very much, Felipe, for that. We hope that in future we'll be able to share great examples from you about how you've used Android Vitals to be able to improve the performance of your games. We know that technical performance is critical to business success. What we have also heard is that sometimes it's hard to make the case for investing in technical performance within companies. So I encourage you to use the benchmarks that we provide in the Play console to make the case of where you and your team should be investing more to be able to compete more effectively. I'd also encourage you to focus your attention on the core vitals if you have limited availability to be able to focus on performance. And make sure to sign up for the email alerts around anomalies and get the rest of your team that are focused on reacting to technical issues to sign up too. We have a session later today about bug hunting on Android by Damien, who's going to be diving into specific detailed examples that developers have faced. So I encourage you to attend that as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Putzi, and I am a BD manager on the Google Play Games BD team. And today I am here with my colleague, Jonathan, who will come up to the stage in a couple of minutes, to talk to you about some powerful tools that can help you more effectively market your new and existing games in the Play Store. As we all know, marketing is critical to the success of games at all stages of their life cycle. Before launch, it's important to build excitement and awareness for your new games. At launch, you want to turn this awareness into installs and also make sure that your store listing is ready and optimized to attract as many prospective players as possible. And of course, after launch, you want to continue acquiring new users and make sure that your store listing stays relevant as you make big updates to your game. So today, we're going to focus on a few tools that can help you better market your game in the Play Store in each of these three phases. First up, let's talk about pre-launch marketing and pre-registration. Today, many businesses do pre-launch marketing to build hype and awareness ahead of big upcoming product launches. There's a long history of this in tech, entertainment, and even in gaming, particularly in the PC and console gaming worlds where pre-launch marketing and even things like pre-ordering are well-established norms. Well, today, pre-launch marketing is also increasingly popular for mobile games. However, until recently, it was actually really hard to do pre-launch marketing for mobile games well, because there was no real way for developers to tie all the marketing that they were doing across channels directly to their game launch. Instead, what we would tend to see developers do is spend a lot of money prior to launch to build hype and awareness, use suboptimal tools that really only allowed you to capture a portion of the demand that you were creating through that marketing, and mostly just hope that that buzz that you created would translate into real installs at launch. Well, today, as you heard a little bit earlier, I'm very excited to announce that Google Play's solution to this pre-launch marketing problem for mobile games, a feature known as pre-registration, is now available to all developers on Google Play. So for those of you who are not familiar, Play's pre-registration feature is an extremely powerful tool that essentially allows developers to fully capture the demand that you generate through your pre-launch marketing activities, and we actually activate that demand for you on your launch day. So how does this technically work? Developers essentially tie all of their pre-launch marketing across channels to one page in the Google Play Store, your pre-registration store listing. And that listing has a very clear call to action for interested users where they can pre-register for your upcoming game. And in return for pre-registering, what users will get is actually a direct notification from the Google Play Store letting them know that your game is now available, allowing them to be some of the first to install and play. Now, pre-registration also has a lot of key benefits for developers at launch as well. Not only does pre-reg allow you to engage and reward your core fans early, but pre-registration notifications also drive a high volume of D1 and D7 installs, both in general and when compared to other pre-registration tools that are available in the market. In other words, Play's pre-registration tool is extremely effective at converting pre-registered users into installs. In fact, across all geographies and all genres, we tend to see that there's a 38% conversion rate from pre-registered users to installs after launch. Now, this is a much, much higher conversion rate that you would see through other pre-registration sources, around 2 to 3x, and it's pretty compelling. Plus, Play's pre-registration campaigns are actually really easy to set up and manage, and you can do that directly in the Play console. So in the pre-registration center on the console, you can set up and manage your campaigns. You can decide which countries you want to run your campaigns in and when. And you can actually view your campaign performance data. So for instance, before launch, you can see the number of users who have signed up And after launch, you can see how many of those users converted into installs. And you can do these breakouts across geographies. Another very cool feature related to pre-registration that is now available in the Play console is related to Play Instant. Earlier today, from Ben and others, you heard a little bit about how effective instant games are in terms of driving user conversions. Well, as of today, we are very excited to also announce that now you can add an instant experience directly to your pre-registration store listing. And this will allow you to attract even more users to sign up for your full product launch and drive greater awareness and excitement. Another pre-registration feature that will be coming soon to the Play console is the ability for developers to grant rewards directly to pre-registered users. Now, this is really exciting because what we've seen is that rewards in general can help drive greater consumer interest in pre-registration campaigns. So for instance, listings that actually market pre-registration rewards can drive as much as a 15% higher click-through rate than those who don't. And on the backside, when it comes to conversions to install, pre-registration rewards can also help drive higher conversions. Because on day one, there's value waiting in game for pre-registered users to come, claim, and consume. So as I mentioned, you can expect to hear more about this very, very soon. Lastly, I'm excited to share one more product update around pre-registration, which is that Google Ads will now offer app campaign support for pre-registration campaigns. Obviously, this is a great new way to reach prospective players, but more to come on this in sessions this afternoon. Finally, a few recommendations for developers who are interested in using pre-registration. First, allow time to build excitement within your audiences before your launch. Generally, we see developers starting pre-registration campaigns anywhere from 3 to 12 weeks ahead of launch. Second, make sure you're using all channels at your disposal to support your pre-registration campaigns. This means social, CRM, media, you name it. Third, make sure you drive your Android traffic to pre-register in the Play Store due to the higher conversion rates we see in the Play Store versus external websites. And finally, consider using Play Instant alongside of your pre-registration campaigns to drive greater consumer interest and awareness for your upcoming launches. Now I'd like to invite my colleague Jonathan up to the stage to talk to you about some other powerful marketing tools that can help you at launch and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Let's switch gears and talk about some exciting features around store listings. Whether during pre-launch, launch, or post-launch, having an effective store listing can be critical to the success of your titles. For many, your store listing is the first thing a user will see about your game. If it doesn't immediately grab their attention, they're likely to move on. In general, we see that for game developers, your icons, videos, and screenshots are particularly important on your store listing for user acquisition. For instance, game devs can see up to 40% difference in conversion performance when testing different icons, and data suggests that we see similar variability for videos and screenshots as well. We've also seen that the ordering of your marketing assets can impact user acquisition. Because gamers really want to quickly get a sense of the true gameplay experience, we really recommend that it's important to put marketing assets that highlight key gameplay features like your videos and screenshots up front in your store listing in the first position. Also, quick PSA, it's important to call out that to be eligible for the new visual promotional clusters on the Play Store, you must have a landscape orientation video trailer and a minimum of 3 landscape screenshots. So really make sure you have these and put them up front in your store listings to get the most out of your users. Now, I will say that one of the most common pain points we hear from developers about store listings is that although they can already localize into different languages, they want the ability to customize their store listings based on where their users live. For instance, maybe you're making a sports game and you want to market it as football in Europe, but soccer in the US, in order to make your store listing as locally relevant as possible. Well, now you can. Today we're excited to announce a powerful new feature only available on Google Play called Country-Targeted Store Listings. With this feature, you can customize your store listings based on the user's country, as well as their locale setting. And from the Play console, you can create up to 5 different groups of countries and serve a completely different store listing to each group, complete with full localization support. All parts of your store listing can be customized, from your icon, your screenshots, your promo message, your video, you name it. And you can also localize everything there as well, in order to better appeal to users in your target market. Even better, because you can target different store listings to different countries, technically you can target based on the state of your game in different countries as well. So for instance, in games where running actively pre-registration, your listing might want to highlight the rewards users may get for pre-registering, or display a pre-launch teaser trailer. And in countries where actively enrolling for open test, your store listing can highlight key gameplay features in order to entice people to install and become part of your test. This is a really powerful way to target your marketing message to the right sets of users. And country-targeted store listings is launching right now to all developers on Google Play. Now that we've talked about the importance of your listing through the life cycle of your game, I think it's also important to discuss one of the best ways to test and manage changes to your store listing in a controlled fashion: store listing experiments. Store listing experiments is one of the most popular tools among top game developers. It's a tool that allows you to A/B test your store listing assets against user traffic so that you can make the most data-informed decisions about which of your assets are driving the most installs. Using Play Console, you can swap out assets on your store listing, such as your screenshots and video, to certain percentages of users who visit your store listing, and compare the performances of each variant before applying them to your full user base. As mentioned before, testing and optimizing certain assets can yield huge differences in performance. Running experiments also allows you to roll out these changes in a safe and controlled fashion. For those of you that are already using store listing experiments, we're happy to announce that we've recently rolled out some exciting improvements to how experiment results are reported. First off, we are introducing 2 new metrics which are replacing the existing metrics on the Play Store. First-time installers tracks users who see your listing and install for the first time, and omits reinstalls who are less likely to be influenced by your store listing. Day 1 retained users tracks users who install and do not uninstall within 1 day. We believe both of these new metrics more accurately reflect the performance of your store listing, and you as developers can choose which ones to use as your success metrics in your experiments. Both metrics are also reported with hourly intervals, updated every few hours, allowing you to see results faster. And you can also now opt into email notifications about when your experiments finish. By reporting the results faster and providing notifications, you can run more experiments and terminate bad treatments faster to minimize install drops. All of this is coming right now to the Play Console and is available to all developers. Okay, so here are some tips and tricks about store listing experiments. Have a clear objective about what you want to test, and test one thing at a time to make sure the experiment results are great before you apply them. Test for 7 days minimum in order to get weekday and weekend performance. Prioritize testing of icons, videos, and screenshots for the biggest impact. And you can also invert your experiments to validate the true performance before applying to all. Okay, so that about wraps up our talk about marketing tools. And I want to give you some key takeaways from this session that you can do right now. Consider using pre-registration for your upcoming launches. It's a great way to build interest pre-launch. Consider building an instant game to run alongside this campaign as well. Optimize your store listings using SLEs. Top developers are already finding great success using this. And finally, look into how you can make your store listings more relevant to your users using country-targeted store listings. For instance, using a store listing to run pre-reg and one for launched or test countries. Thanks. Next, I'd like to invite Nacho to the stage, who's going to talk about lifetime value for your games.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ignacio, or Nacho, as people call me. I am based in London. I work with game developers across the Western Europe region. And this session is about lifetime value, which is a dense topic, and it all started for me about 3 years ago, when very often I heard this term mentioned in my meetings with developers. And in fact, it's a very popular metric, to the point that the latest report by Mary Meekers last year was mentioning this is the #1 metric when it comes to ad spending. So really, really, developers, they care about it. And if you take in consideration the context where we are on one side we have the mobile gaming industry, which is highly competitive, and on the other hand, we have all this data that we're sitting on, and it's becoming more available and easier to handle. So this is really leading to developers to feel the need that they need to understand the value of their players from the very first minute they jump into the game. And as such, they're using lifetime value metric for many purposes. So the first one is like marketing viability, which we spoke already. So how far we can push those CPIs and how much we can invest in acquiring a user. But it's also, we see a lot of developers thinking about live ops and running some of the offers, running some of the promotions within the game. As well, if we think even bolder, we can think about product prioritization. We can think about new games if we are looking to improve our LTV across the portfolio of games that we have. And last but not least, if we subtract some of the cost and we think about in net terms of LTV, we can think about like the profit margins. So as an example, Gamehouse is a developer based in Netherlands and Spain, and they're using lifetime value to do many of the things that we mentioned. So they're doing user acquisition, they're doing remarketing, re-engagement, retargeting, and they're even thinking about live ops for the new games Doctor's Oath. So in an ideal world, our lifetime value metric would look like in this way. So it would be predictive. We're looking forward rather than just like historical data. We would be also, it would be a metric that is extremely accurate because we need to take decisions with certain degree of confidence. It would be also looking at individual level rather than cohorts, and it would be fast. From the very first day, we will know what is the value that this player is going to bring in its lifetime. As well, the model that we're using, it would be fast and simple, meaning that we don't have to spend months in order to train this model. But the first thing that you learn when you start researching about lifetime value is that there is no standard way of calculating it, which means that this comes with some trade-offs and some challenges. We asked Plarium, Israeli developer, the creator of Vikings, War of Clans, and they told us they faced 3 key challenges. The first one is like how to estimate the lifetime value for certain type of players. They call it outliers, and these are players that they might be highly engaged, but they are non-payers. As well, they have multiple games in their portfolio, and it's very difficult for them to use one unique model that really is adjusting to every type of game. And last but not least, the long window that is needed to validate these models, in fact, is higher than expected. But whenever we're talking about developers, they see that these models, all of them, they have several common things, common areas. In this case, we could split lifetime value in 3 areas. And this would be, the first one, we would talk about what is lifetime. That is generally represented in daily retention, and this is a classic way. But here, many developers, they're starting to think about whether the classic retention is like the one that makes more sense for their own game, and they can think about other ways of calculating retention, such as, for example, range or rolling retention. Also think about retention, it means right now opening the app, but it's not the same if we're opening a game just to collect a daily reward or to play another battle. The second area would be the value, and this is generally represented by purchases or by averages such as ARPDAU or RPPU. And in this case, if you are considering averages, very important to take into account as well, how long are you going backwards? Let's imagine that, for example, you ran an offer last week. And then last but not least is the period. So how far are we going into the future in order to estimate our lifetime value? And generally, from my conversations with developers, it all comes down to 2 things. The nature of the game, and as well, how well-funded are we in terms of like acquiring users for like a period of 180 days or 365 days. Here we have an example that I just mentioned. For example, in a case, we're taking the RPPU of a user and we are projecting for 180 days. So other things that developers take into account when they refer to lifetime value. So we have, first of all, like how do we integrate all the different business models that we are monetizing nowadays? So how do we include like in-app purchases together with subscriptions and together with ads? As well, if you are a developer that has multiple games in your portfolio and you are running some sort of in-house ads and cross-promotions, it's a best practice that some of developers, they're thinking about the lifetime value across the whole portfolio. Last but not least, we're talking about as well virality and K-factor effect. So this might not affect the lifetime value, but indeed affects the return on ad spend. And some other areas that developers consider is, as I said before, net LTV, also the frequency when we do these calculations, and what are the segments that we are using if we are applying averages. So I try to cluster, which is very difficult, I try to cluster all these models into 3 areas. So the first one, if we have small data, we have to take decisions, we kind of like consider these simple predictive models, which are looking at averages, and we are trying to estimate based on this, for example, bottoms-up approach or top-down approach, we are trying to estimate the lifetime value of a user. You have a number of tools available today in the Play console and as well in some analyticals tools such as Firebase, where you can extract this information and start working around these models. If you have more data and you have more mature games, so you can actually also you have more resources to dedicate, you can think about these predictive statistical models, which generally they're coming from the offline world and they are backed by academia. And you have a couple of examples here, Pareto MBD, BGMBD. The good news is that they are open source and you can download the libraries. In this case, I put Lifetimes Python library, which is open for everyone, and you can start playing around. The good news is that we will have individual predictive lifetime values already, and it would be very helpful if you want to run live ops. And then last but not least, we have the predictive machine learning models, way more sophisticated, a bit more complex as well, but they are extremely helpful if you're trying to understand what are the behaviors that are driving certain actions, such as making purchases. If you want to start, like we have Firebase predictions, there's going to be a session later on today, and you can think about like using these as a first step into these type of models. Obviously, if you have more resources, you can use TensorFlow or AutoML to build your own algorithms based on random forest or neural networks. So Games House, the same developer that I was mentioning before, they use historical data combined with machine learning, and they're able to estimate a lifetime value within a week for 90%, with 90% accuracy. So which one is the best? This is the most trickiest question. I would say in this case also the answer would be depend. It depends on your resources, what you want to do with this metric, and how much effort you want to put into it. If you, for example, don't have too much data nor too much resources, some of the simple predictive models would be interesting. If you, for example, have a very clear focus on user acquisition and you have the data and the resources, some of these machine learning predictive models could be very helpful in order to understand the likelihood of a new player becoming a payer. And then if you have a mature game with lots of data and highly engaged users, you can think about the predictive statistical models, which they run very well to calculate live ops. I want to spend the last 2 minutes talking about a case study. Space Ape is a developer from the UK, founded in 2012, and is the creator of popular games such as Samurai Siege and Fastlane. In this case, Space Ape, they calculate the lifetime value based on historical data and using statistical models. They have data for about 1 to 6 months, and after the day 2, they're able to estimate what is going to be the lifetime value with an 80 to 90% accuracy. The way they do it is they create segments based on tenure, based on geography, and they multiply the revenues generated of that particular player by a ratio that they estimate based on their models. So the LTV is mainly used for user acquisition purposes, but also Space Ape use it for live ops. The LTV metric is refreshed on a daily basis, and they have 2 interesting additional LTV metrics. One is called LTV Plus, which essentially it's adding a small percentage to this metric, and is used only for user acquisition purposes. And this is to take into account the virality or the K factor. Then the second one is the ad LTV. And what they're doing is, like, thanks to network, like partnerships with networks, they are trying to understand what it goes beyond the ad view, and even like what would be the conversion of a particular player when they see a rewarded ad, for example. So in essence, for Space Ape, lifetime value is a critical metric, and they aim to actually have a return on ad spend at least 100% in the first 2 months. So with these, I would like to conclude with 4 things. So the first one is, remember, we are using lifetime value for user acquisition purposes, but you can use it as well for other topics or other purposes, such as live ops or, in this case, net LTV. As well, when possible, try to use a predictive model and individual, and as well consider other things such as how we're going to use this model, how we are going to use this metric, and if we have, for example, multiple apps in our portfolio, or how we're going to incorporate other business models. Then last but not least, predicting the future is obviously is not 100% accurate science, so take these more as a tool and as a metric rather than just a goal.